Pay attention to this photograph that was taken that afternoon. Three women on a yacht deck posed together, flexing their incredibly muscular arms for the camera. They're smiling, confident, wearing bright bikinis under the blazing sun. The photographer is directing them, telling them to hold the pose, give their best competition flex. But somebody else was already watching these women, someone who knew exactly what was about to happen in the next few hours. Within 3 days, all three of these women will be dead. And this photograph? It'll become the last image ever taken of them alive. You know that moment when you see someone who's completely transformed themselves through sheer dedication and willpower? Someone who's built something extraordinary from absolutely nothing? For the Santiago sisters, Nicole at 36 and Valerie at 33, that transformation was bodybuilding. And they weren't just good at it, they were absolutely phenomenal. Growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, the Santiago girls weren't natural athletes. Nicole worked as a dental hygienist at a busy practice in Tempe. Valerie managed a small boutique in Scottsdale, selling handmade jewelry and vintage clothing. They were regular women living perfectly regular lives until Nicole walked into Iron Temple Gym in January 2009, and everything changed. She'd gained almost 40 pounds after her divorce, felt completely lost, needed something concrete to focus on that would give her life structure again. Within 6 months, she was competing in her first amateur show. Within a year, she'd convinced Valerie to join her. Here's the thing about competitive bodybuilding. It's not just a hobby you pick up on weekends. It becomes your entire world, consuming every aspect of your life. Your meals are timed down to the minute. Your sleep schedule becomes absolutely sacred. Your training partners become closer than family. And for the Santiago sisters, their chosen family expanded to include Morgan Kelsey, a 39-year-old former college track athlete who discovered bodybuilding after a devastating career-ending knee injury derailed her Olympic dreams. The three of them became completely inseparable. They trained together 6 days a week, 4 hours minimum per session. They traveled to competitions together across California, Nevada, and Arizona. They posted their progress on social media together, documenting every meal, every workout, every small victory. Their followers absolutely loved them. 3 strong, determined women who proved that dedication and consistency could reshape not just your body, but your entire life trajectory. But on May 17, 2016, that life ended in the most brutal way imaginable. And the way it ended, nobody could have possibly seen it coming. Let me paint you a detailed picture of San Diego in mid-May. The weather's absolutely perfect. 75 degrees, cloudless blue sky, gentle ocean breeze. The marina's packed with boats of every size, their hulls gleaming in the afternoon sun. And the bodybuilding community throughout Southern California is absolutely buzzing with excitement because the SoCal Championships are coming up in just 3 weeks. Nicole, Valerie, and Morgan have been training harder than they've ever trained in their lives. They're in the middle of their cutting phase, dropping water weight, perfecting their posing routines, and they're genuinely confident. This is going to be their year. They can feel it. May 17th, 2016 starts exactly like any other Tuesday in their carefully structured lives. Nicole posts on Instagram at 6:47 a.m. A mirror selfie from the gym bathroom with the caption, "Chest and shoulders, let's go." Valerie comments within minutes with 3 fire emojis and a flexed bicep. Morgan adds, "Meet you there in 20 girl" with a kiss emoji. Normal stuff. The exact kind of thing they posted literally every single day without fail. They finished their morning training session around 9 a.m., absolutely drenched in sweat, muscles pumped and burning. They grab their post-workout protein shakes from the gym's supplement bar, chat with some of the other regulars, then head to their respective homes to shower and change. Nicole's got a full schedule of patients at the dental office starting at 11 a.m. Valerie's got inventory to check at the boutique because they're expecting a shipment of new merchandise. Morgan's working from home. She does freelance graphic design for small businesses and has 3 client deadlines this week. They're all planning to meet up later that evening around 7 p.m. for their weekly meal prep session, where they'll cook and portion out all their carefully calculated meals for the next 4 days. But then Nicole gets a text message at 11:23 a.m. that changes everything. It's from a number she recognizes immediately. Damian Cross, 43 years old, a successful businessman who'd approached them at a competition in Sacramento 6 months earlier, in November 2015. He'd introduced himself as a fitness enthusiast and entrepreneur who wanted to sponsor promising local athletes, help them achieve their competitive dreams. Really nice guy, incredibly charming, drove a black Mercedes S-Class, always wore expensive Rolex watches. He'd been helping them with supplements and nutrition advice for months now, which really meant, though they didn't fully understand this yet, he was their connection to underground performance-enhancing drugs. The text message is brief and exciting. Need to see you 3 today. Important business opportunity we should discuss. Meet me at Pacific Marina, Dock 7, 2 p.m. sharp. Bring your competition suits. We'll do some promotional photos on my yacht for potential sponsors. Nicole screenshots the message immediately and sends it to their group chat. Valerie responds within seconds. Ooh, fancy! What kind of opportunity do you think it is? Morgan sends back, I'm totally down. Could definitely use some good professional promo shots for my portfolio. Here's what they didn't know at that moment. What they absolutely couldn't have known, despite Nicole's growing suspicions. Damian Cross wasn't just a generous sponsor helping local athletes. He was running one of the largest and most sophisticated underground steroid distribution networks operating on the entire West Coast, moving product through 6 different states, making millions of dollars every year. And Nicole, Valerie, and Morgan, they weren't just his clients purchasing supplements, they were unwitting couriers, trafficking illegal substances across state lines. They genuinely didn't know that's what they were actually doing for him. Damian had been extremely clever, almost brilliant in his manipulation. He'd send them to out-of-state competitions with special supplement packages carefully packed in their gym bags, then casually tell them to deliver these packages to specific people he'd discreetly point out at the venue. Just giving out samples to potential new clients, he'd explain with that charming smile, helping spread the word about our products. They trusted him completely. Why wouldn't they? He was sponsoring their competition fees, helping them achieve their dreams, treating them like valued business partners. But Nicole had started noticing concerning things over the past 2 months. Weird little details that didn't quite add up. Like how visibly nervous Damian became when she casually mentioned seeing police officers at one of the competitions in Arizona. Or how he'd very specifically told her never, under any circumstances, to open the packages she was delivering to people. Or how much cash he always carried in his wallet, thick stacks of $100 bills. She wasn't stupid, despite what Damian might have thought. She'd started carefully putting pieces together, connecting dots that formed a very disturbing picture. And 2 months earlier, in March 2016, Nicole had done something extraordinarily brave and simultaneously dangerous that would ultimately lead directly to all 3 of their deaths. She'd contacted the Drug Enforcement Administration. At 1:45 p.m. on May 17th, all 3 women arrive at Pacific Marina simultaneously. It's absolutely gorgeous. Dozens of white boats gleaming brilliantly in the sun, calm blue water sparkling like diamonds, seagulls calling overhead and circling lazily. They're wearing their competition bikinis under casual sundresses, carrying gym bags packed with their tanning oil, pose practice props, makeup for touch-ups, and bottles of water. They're genuinely excited, chattering about the possibilities. New professional promotional photos mean better sponsorship opportunities down the line, maybe even some fitness modeling work, possibly magazine features. Damian's yacht is genuinely impressive, the kind of vessel that screams serious money. 2 feet long, pristine gleaming white fiberglass, with the name Apex Predator painted in sleek black letters along the stern. He's waiting on the deck for them, flashing that familiar charming smile, wearing expensive designer sunglasses and board shorts that probably cost more than their monthly gym memberships combined. Ladies, right on time as always. Come aboard, make yourselves comfortable. They climb onto the yacht carefully, laughing about something Valerie said, chatting excitedly about their upcoming competition and how close they are to peak condition. Damien's got his smartphone out already, says he wants to capture some casual, candid shots first before the professional photographer he's supposedly hired arrives in about an hour. Just relax, be completely natural, show off those incredible physiques you've worked so incredibly hard for. Give me your best competition poses. Someone, almost certainly Damien himself, takes that photograph of them on the deck. The three of them pose together in a row, flexing their arms, showing off months and months of brutal training and strict dieting. They're smiling, genuinely happy, completely unaware of what's about to happen. That photograph gets time-stamped 2:47 p.m., according to the phone's metadata. The very last image ever taken of Nicole Santiago, Valerie Santiago, and Morgan Kelsey alive. "Okay, ladies," Damien says, lowering his phone and setting it on a nearby table. "Before we do the full professional shoot, I've got something really special for you. A new supplement formulation I've been personally working on with some chemists. It's going to take your muscle definition to an absolutely unprecedented level for the competition. You're going to look incredible on stage." He disappears into the yacht's cabin for maybe 30 seconds, then comes back carrying a medical bag. Not a regular gym bag or supplement container, an actual medical bag. The professional kind with sterile packaging, glass vials with typed labels, and individually wrapped sterile syringes still in their packages. Now, here's where things get murky and unclear, because what happened in the next critical minutes, nobody survived to tell the story except Damien himself. But based on all the physical evidence, based on the detailed forensics, based on what prosecutors would later painstakingly piece together from multiple sources, here's what almost certainly went down. Morgan hesitates immediately, her intuition triggering warning signals. "Wait, I thought we were just doing promotional photos today." "We absolutely are," Damien assures her smoothly, his tone warm and confident. "But this particular supplement formulation works best when it's fresh in your system, when your muscles are still pumped from training. Trust me on this. You're going to absolutely love the results. It's completely safe. I've personally tested it myself multiple times." Nicole's suspicious now, more than suspicious. She's been actively suspicious for weeks now, ever since she started secretly cooperating with DEA agents. She's actually wearing a wire at this very moment, a tiny digital recording device the federal agents gave her last week, hidden carefully in the bottom of her gym bag underneath her towel and water bottles. They'd told her very clearly to be careful, to absolutely not put herself in any potentially dangerous situations. But here she is, on an isolated yacht with a man she now knows is a major drug trafficker. And something feels deeply, fundamentally wrong about this entire situation. "You know what? Maybe we should just stick to taking the photos," Nicole suggests carefully, trying to keep her voice casual and non-threatening. Damien's smile doesn't waver even slightly, but something subtle changes in his eyes. Something cold. "Nicole? Seriously? After absolutely everything I've done for you three? All the money I've invested, all the opportunities I've created, you don't trust me now?" Valerie, sweet Valerie who always saw the absolute best in everyone, who hated conflict of any kind, steps forward trying to smooth things over. "Of course we trust you completely, Damien. We really appreciate everything. What exactly is it, the supplement, I mean?" "Proprietary blend," he explains, beginning to prepare a syringe with practiced medical precision. "Advanced amino acid compounds, specialized peptides, some experimental substances I honestly can't fully disclose because I'm currently getting them patented. You'll feel absolutely amazing within hours. Muscle fullness, vascularity, definition. Who wants to go first and see how incredible it is?" The thing about performance-enhancing drugs in competitive bodybuilding, they're absolutely everywhere. It's one of the sport's worst-kept secrets. Most serious competitive bodybuilders use something, whether they publicly admit it or not. So the sight of Damien standing there with a syringe isn't immediately shocking or alarming to them. They've all self-injected before. They've all pushed their bodies to what most people would consider dangerous extremes in pursuit of their competitive goals. But Nicole's instincts are absolutely screaming at her now. She glances down at her gym bag on the deck, thinking about the wire recording device hidden inside, thinking about the federal agents she's been secretly meeting with for 2 months, thinking about how she'd finally told Valerie and Morgan everything 3 weeks ago. About Damien's massive criminal operation, about how they'd all been unknowingly trafficking illegal steroids across state lines for months, about the full immunity deal the DEA had offered if they all agreed to cooperate and testify. They'd been absolutely terrified when she first told them, but they'd ultimately agreed to help. They were scheduled to give formal depositions in August. They were supposed to be protected by federal agents. "Actually, Damien," Nicole says, standing up from where she'd been sitting on the yacht's cushioned bench, "I think we should probably go. We just remembered we have this thing we forgot about." "Sit down, Nicole." His voice is completely different now. Flat, cold, empty of any warmth. The charming sponsor persona has completely vanished. "Damien, what's going on? You're scaring us," Morgan asks, her voice shaking slightly. He's still holding the prepared syringe in his right hand, but now he's reaching into the medical bag with his left hand. When that hand comes back out, he's holding a compact 9mm pistol. The yacht's entire cabin had been specially soundproofed. Damien had paid for custom modifications months ago, back in February, when he first started suspecting he might need to have certain difficult conversations away from any listening ears or potential witnesses. The marina's extremely busy this time of day, dozens of people within 100 yards, but absolutely nobody hears what happens next. Nobody hears Nicole trying desperately to negotiate with him, trying to talk him down from whatever he's planning, insisting over and over that they haven't said anything to anyone yet. Nobody hears Valerie crying hysterically, begging her older sister to please just do whatever he says so they can go home. Nobody hears Morgan's voice shaking uncontrollably as she asks the question that confirms Damien's worst suspicions. "How did you find out? How did you know about us?" Because that's the real question, isn't it? How did he know they'd flipped and become federal informants? Turns out, Damien had developed contacts and informants everywhere throughout law enforcement over years of operation, including a corrupt detective inside the San Diego Police Department who'd been on his payroll for 3 years. This dirty cop had tipped him off about a federal DEA investigation, about confidential informants who were preparing to testify, about 3 female bodybuilders who'd been photographed meeting with federal agents. The corrupt cop couldn't provide specific names due to information compartmentalization, but Damien could easily fill in the blanks himself. He'd been watching the 3 women carefully for weeks. He'd noticed Nicole's increased nervousness around him, Valerie's obvious guilt whenever they spoke, Morgan's growing emotional distance. This whole promotional photo shoot opportunity? It was never remotely real. The yacht had been prepared for days. He'd been planning this execution since last week. The syringes he'd prepared contained something, but it definitely wasn't any kind of supplement. It was a massive, absolutely lethal dose of synthetic testosterone cypionate and trenbolone acetate, anabolic steroids concentrated to levels so extreme they'd cause immediate catastrophic cardiac arrest, especially in bodies already severely stressed from intense competition preparation and dehydration. He forced them one by one at gunpoint with his finger on the trigger to inject the lethal compounds themselves. He told them if they cooperated quickly and didn't fight him, made it fast, he'd make absolutely sure their families knew it was just a tragic accident. He reminded them that competitive bodybuilders die from steroid-related complications all the time. Their deaths wouldn't even be particularly suspicious to investigators. Nicole fought him. Of course she did. That's exactly who she was. The autopsy would later reveal extensive defensive wounds on her forearms, deep bruising on both wrists from where he'd grabbed her. But with a loaded gun pressed directly against Valerie's temple, what real choice did she have? Morgan went first, because Damien calculated she'd be easiest to control. She was unconscious within 90 seconds, her heart stopping within 5 minutes, as the massive dose of hormones caused complete cardiac failure. Valerie next, sobbing uncontrollably, apologizing to Nicole over and over and over. "I'm so sorry, this is all my fault. I should never have agreed to help." "It's not your fault at all," Nicole told her baby sister firmly, holding her hand tight as the drugs began taking effect. "I love you so much. I love you more than anything. Mom loves you. You're the best sister anyone could have." And then Nicole went last, forced to watch her sister's body go still, forced to watch her best friend's chest stop rising and falling, knowing she was about to join them in death. Damien waited patiently until all three were completely, verifiably dead. No pulses, no breathing, no responses. Then he methodically and carefully cleaned the entire yacht using commercial-grade disinfectants, placed their bodies in heavy-duty black contractor bags he'd purchased specifically for this purpose, and waited for nightfall to move them. When 3 people disappear simultaneously without any warning or explanation, alarm bells start ringing incredibly fast. Nicole's dental office receptionist calls her cell phone at 4:15 p.m. when she misses her first afternoon patient appointment. No answer, which is extremely unusual. Valerie's boutique business partner texts her at 5:30 p.m. asking where she is because they were supposed to meet with a new jewelry supplier. No response whatsoever. Morgan's boyfriend Tyler tries calling her at 6:45 p.m. because they had definite dinner reservations at their favorite Italian restaurant. Goes straight to voicemail immediately. By 8 p.m. that evening, all 3 women's families and close friends are genuinely worried. By 10 p.m., they're absolutely terrified. Nicole and Valerie's mother, Rosa Santiago, 62 years old and recently widowed, calls the Phoenix Police Department at 10:47 p.m. to report both her daughters missing. The officer taking her report tries his best to calm her down. They're adults. They've technically only been out of contact for a few hours. Maybe they went somewhere together without their phones for some reason? "My daughters never ever go anywhere without their phones," Rosa insists, her voice rising with panic. "They're attached to those things constantly. Something's very wrong. Something's happened to them. I can feel it." Morgan's boyfriend, Tyler Chen, 28 years old and completely devoted to her, is already frantically driving around San Diego looking for any sign of her. He checks her apartment, her car's in the parking lot, which makes no sense. He checks the gym, closed for the night. He checks their favorite coffee shop, the grocery store she always goes to, the park where she sometimes runs. Absolutely nothing. Her car's in her apartment parking lot, which means she didn't drive anywhere. Her laptop's on her kitchen table, still open to an active design project she was working on. Her purse is sitting on the counter with her wallet still inside. Tyler calls the San Diego Police Department at 11:15 p.m., trying to keep his voice steady. Same response from the desk sergeant. "Too early to really panic yet. Let's give it 24 hours. Adults have the right to be out of contact." But Tyler knows Morgan on an intimate level. She's responsible, incredibly reliable, always reachable by phone. This isn't remotely like her. He starts systematically calling everyone in her phone contacts, her friends, her family members, her clients, anyone who might have possibly seen her or heard from her. At 1:30 a.m. on May 18th, Tyler finally gets a call back from Jesse Martinez, another bodybuilder who sometimes trains with the 3 women. "Hey Tyler, I just saw your 17 missed calls and messages. Have you checked if Nicole and Valerie are also missing? Morgan literally wouldn't go anywhere without those 2. They're inseparable." That's the exact moment when the pieces start clicking together in Tyler's mind. Tyler immediately calls Rosa Santiago's number. They compare notes frantically. All 3 women disappeared at exactly the same time, last confirmed seen around 1:45 p.m. heading toward Pacific Marina for some kind of photo shoot. The Marina, a photo shoot that nobody else knew anything about. Tyler and Rosa meet at San Diego Police Department's Central Station at 3 a.m., both exhausted and terrified, but absolutely refusing to wait for the arbitrary 24-hour missing persons window. They demand that officers start looking immediately. Detective Carmen Reyes catches the case when she arrives for her early shift at 6 a.m. She's a 15-year veteran of the department, sharp and thorough, with excellent instincts. She immediately senses this isn't any kind of simple missing persons case. 3 women, all intimately connected, all disappearing simultaneously with their phones going dead at the exact same time. That's not random chance or coincidence. "Tell me everything about their lifestyle," Detective Reyes says, sitting down with Tyler and Rosa. "Were they involved in anything potentially risky? Any drug use? Money problems? Relationship issues?" Tyler and Rosa exchange uncertain glances. Here's the thing. They knew about the bodybuilding lifestyle, obviously. They knew their loved ones were dedicated, maybe even obsessive about training and competing. But underground steroids, criminal networks, federal investigations, they genuinely had absolutely no idea any of that existed. "They were competitive bodybuilders," Rosa explains carefully. "They competed in shows, they trained extremely hard, they were very disciplined about their diet and exercise. That's honestly all I know about it." Detective Reyes starts pulling phone records immediately using emergency authorizations. When she sees that all 3 women's phones went completely dead, not just turned off, but completely stopped transmitting any signal within minutes of each other at exactly 2:52 p.m. on May 17th, her concern intensifies dramatically. People don't simultaneously power off their phones by accident or coincidence. But here's what absolutely haunted everyone involved in those first critical 48 hours. Where were the bodies? Because Damien was smart. Terrifyingly, methodically smart. At 2:30 a.m. on May 18th, while Tyler and Rosa were desperately meeting with Detective Reyes trying to file official reports, Damien was pulling his black Mercedes into a storage facility in Lakeside, California, a small town located about 20 miles directly inland from San Diego. He'd rented unit number 247 6 months earlier, back in November, under a completely fake identity, paid exclusively in cash, and deliberately never visited during normal business hours when employees or other customers might see him. He carefully unloaded 3 large, heavy contractor bags from his yacht trailer, moving quickly but not frantically. The storage facility's security camera system had been broken and non-functional for months, had been since before he even rented the unit actually, and Damien had specifically chosen this particular facility because of that convenient security vulnerability. Inside Unit 247, he'd already prepared absolutely everything days in advance. Industrial plastic sheeting covering every surface, chemical compounds designed to mask odors, agricultural lime. He wasn't trying to hide the bodies forever. He understood that was likely impossible. He just needed a few strategic days, just long enough to establish a solid alibi, to clean up any remaining loose ends, to transfer money and prepare to disappear to a non-extradition country if necessary. Back at the marina, Damien spent the entire day on May 18th acting completely, perfectly normal. He chatted pleasantly with other boat owners about the beautiful weather. He helped an elderly man with some engine trouble on his sailboat. He even posted on his personal social media about perfect weather for sailing, nothing better than being out on the water. When police would eventually come to question everyone at the marina, several people would specifically remember seeing him that day. "Really nice guy," they'd say. "Very helpful and friendly. Seemed totally normal and relaxed." Detective Reyes' investigation intensified rapidly. By the afternoon of May 18th, she'd already obtained emergency search warrants for the women's phones, email accounts, and social media accounts. That's when the case got extremely complicated, because Nicole's email contained multiple encrypted messages to a Drug Enforcement Administration email address. At 6:15 p.m. on May 18th, Detective Reyes got an unexpected call from a federal agent named Marcus Webb. Detective Reyes, I need you to immediately stop your investigation and coordinate all activities with us. Your missing persons are protected federal witnesses in an active DEA operation. You can probably imagine how that conversation went. Agent Webb explained the situation as much as he was legally authorized to. The massive multi-state steroid distribution network, Nicole's brave decision to cooperate with federal investigators, how she'd eventually brought Valerie and Morgan into the fold as additional witnesses, the planned grand jury testimony scheduled for August. He was professionally careful not to reveal too many operational details, but Detective Reyes wasn't stupid. She understood exactly what this meant. "Do you have any suspects in their disappearance?" she asked directly. "We have several persons of interest, but our primary target is a man named Damian Cross, and if your witnesses have disappeared, he's absolutely our #1 suspect for their disappearance or worse." The next 48 hours transformed into an intensive joint task force operation. FBI agents, DEA agents, San Diego Police Department detectives, all working together in a coordinated command center. They pulled every single piece of Damian's financial records going back 5 years. They examined his property records. They analyzed his phone location data. They discovered the storage unit rental in Lakeside, but it was under a completely fake name with false identification, and they couldn't immediately connect it directly to him without more evidence. They discovered his yacht's recent modifications, the extensive soundproofing installation, the specialized commercial cleaning equipment he'd purchased from industrial suppliers. They found the corrupt cop who'd been feeding him information, brought him in for aggressive questioning. He immediately lawyered up and refused to say anything. On May 19th, police executed a comprehensive search warrant on Damian's primary residence in La Jolla, an expensive neighborhood overlooking the ocean. The house was absolutely pristine. Too pristine, actually, suspiciously so. Forensic teams found microscopic traces of industrial bleach literally everywhere, on floors, walls, in drains. His computer hard drives had been professionally wiped clean. His phones were completely factory reset, but here's what they absolutely didn't find: any evidence whatsoever of the 3 women. Tyler Chen was genuinely losing his mind. He'd been awake for over 60 consecutive hours, driving systematically around San Diego, posting hundreds of flyers with Morgan's photo, organizing volunteer search parties with other members of the bodybuilding community. Rosa Santiago appeared on the local news, tearfully pleading for information, begging desperately for her daughters to come home safely. "Please," she sobbed during an emotional press conference on May 20th, her voice breaking completely. "If anyone knows anything at all, please call the police immediately. Nicole, Valerie, Morgan, if somehow you can hear this, we love you so much. We're looking for you everywhere. Please come home to us." But they were already dead. Had been dead for 3 days at that point, their bodies decomposing in a storage unit 20 miles away. Meanwhile, Damian was methodically preparing his emergency exit strategy. He'd already transferred over $2 million to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Singapore. He had a fake passport ready under a different identity. He had a first-class flight booked to Bangkok, Thailand for May 24th under his false name. He just needed to wait a few more strategic days, let the immediate heat die down a bit, then disappear permanently. But he made one absolutely critical mistake that would destroy everything. On May 21st, Damian couldn't resist personally checking on the storage unit. He needed to make absolutely sure everything was still secure, that there were no noticeable smells escaping, no visible signs of what was hidden inside. He drove to Lakeside at 11 p.m., deliberately parked 3 blocks away to avoid any cameras, then walked to the facility. What he didn't know, couldn't have known, was that Agent Webb had assigned dedicated surveillance teams to watch all of Damian's known associates, properties, and frequented locations. And one sharp agent, parked in an unmarked car near a commercial property Damian owned, happened to recognize him walking down a residential street at 11:15 p.m. in a neighborhood where he had absolutely no apparent reason to be. The agent followed at a careful distance, watched Damian enter the storage facility through a side gate using bolt cutters, watched him spend approximately 30 minutes inside Unit 247, then leave looking visibly relieved. At 12:04 a.m. on May 22nd, the surveillance agent radioed it in to Agent Webb. Detective Carmen Reyes and DEA agent Marcus Webb stood outside Lakeside Storage at 3:15 a.m. on May 22nd, waiting anxiously for an emergency search warrant to come through. They knew, somehow, through years of investigative experience and instinct, they just knew this was it. The warrant finally came through at 4:47 a.m. When they cut the heavy lock on Unit 247 and raised the metal door, the smell hit them absolutely immediately. Even with all the chemicals and lime Damien had used, death has a distinctive smell that's impossible to completely mask. Inside, 3 black contractor bags, arranged almost respectfully side by side. 3 women who just wanted to be strong, to compete, to live their dreams. Detective Reyes, who'd seen literally hundreds of crime scenes in her career, had to walk away for a minute to compose herself. Agent Webb radioed for the coroner, for forensic teams, for everyone. Rosa Santiago received the devastating call at 6:30 a.m. Tyler Chen got his call 10 minutes later. The absolute worst news anyone can possibly receive, delivered by kind voices that couldn't make it any less devastating. But finding the bodies wasn't the end of the investigation. It was just the beginning of building an airtight prosecution case. Forensic examination revealed the cause of death: massive steroid overdose causing complete cardiac arrest in all 3 women. The concentrations of testosterone and trenbolone in their systems were absolutely astronomical, completely impossible to self-administer accidentally. This was premeditated murder, calculated and deliberate. But they needed more than just bodies. They needed absolute proof that Damien killed them. That's where technology ultimately saved the day. Remember Nicole's wire, the recording device the DEA had given her? It was still in her gym bag, which was found in the storage unit. The device had been severely damaged when Damien disposed of the bags, and most of the recording was corrupted beyond recovery. But forensic audio specialists spent 3 intensive days using specialized software recovering what they could. They got 17 minutes of scratchy, partial audio. But it was enough. Nicole's voice: "We should just stick to the photos." Damien's voice: "After everything I've done for you 3? Sounds of clear physical struggle. Valerie crying desperately. Morgan's voice shaking. "How did you know?" And most damning, Damien's voice cold and absolutely clear. "You 3 made this choice when you decided to betray me. This is what happens to rats." Agent Webb played that recovered recording for the prosecution team and knew they had him. But here's what made the case absolutely ironclad: the photograph from the yacht. Remember that image from the pre-intro? The one showing the 3 women flexing on the deck? Police found it on Damien's phone when they finally cracked his backup cloud storage on May 24th. The photograph showed exactly what you saw: 3 happy women, posing, smiling, alive. But the metadata was absolutely crucial. It was taken at 2:47 p.m. on May 17th. Their phones went dead at 2:52 p.m. That 5-minute window was the timeline of their murders. And here's the truly chilling part. When forensic analysts examined the full contents of his phone, they found other videos. Videos Damien had filmed inside the yacht cabin using a hidden camera. Videos of the murders themselves. He'd recorded everything: the threats, the gun, the forced injections, the women dying. He'd apparently planned to release the footage on dark web forums as a warning to other potential informants. This is what happens when you talk to the feds. Prosecutors would later use those videos at trial, though they'd never be released publicly out of respect for the families. On May 23, 2016, at 6 a.m., a tactical team surrounded Damien Cross's La Jolla home. He was packing the very last of his bags, preparing to head to the airport for his Bangkok flight scheduled for that afternoon. "Federal agents! On the ground now!" He complied without any resistance, smiling actually, like he'd been expecting this inevitability. At the station, he immediately invoked his right to an attorney and didn't say a single word. didn't matter at all. The evidence spoke loudly enough. The subsequent investigation into his steroid network uncovered distributors in California, Nevada, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, and Colorado. Over 40 people were eventually arrested and charged. The dirty cop who tipped him off got 15 years in federal prison. Damien's various suppliers got sentences ranging from 3 to 20 years. But the big trial, the one everyone was waiting for, was Damien Cross's triple murder trial. It started on February 3, 2017, 9 months after the murders. The courtroom was absolutely packed every single day. Rosa Santiago sat in the front row, holding framed photos of her daughters. Tyler Chen was there too, along with Morgan's entire extended family. The prosecution laid out their case methodically and devastatingly. The steroid network, Nicole's cooperation with the DEA, the threatening phone records, the storage unit rental, the yacht modifications, the audio from Nicole's wire, the photographs showing the last moments of the women's lives, and then, in closed session with only the judge, jury, and attorneys present, they played the videos Damien had filmed, the actual murders. 3 jurors cried openly. 1 had to leave the courtroom temporarily. The judge called a recess. Damien's defense tried desperately to argue that the deaths were accidental overdoses, that their client was being framed, that the evidence was circumstantial. But how do you possibly argue against video of your client forcing 3 women to inject lethal doses at gunpoint? You can't. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing on April 12, 2017, the judge asked if the families wanted to give victim impact statements. Rosa Santiago stood, her hands visibly shaking, holding a photo of Nicole and Valerie as young children. "My daughters were beautiful, strong, determined women," she said, her voice breaking. "They worked so incredibly hard for their dreams. They trusted the wrong person and it cost them everything. But they were trying to do the right thing at the end. They were trying to fix their mistake. They were brave, and this man took them from me." She turned to look directly at Damien. "You don't get to win. You don't get to silence them. Their story will be told, and you will rot in prison for what you did." Tyler spoke next, talking about Morgan's kindness, her creativity, how she'd made him laugh every single day, how he'd been planning to propose to her that summer, how he'd picked out a ring and was just waiting for the right moment, how that moment would never come now. The judge sentenced Damien Cross to 3 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. As they led him from the courtroom, he looked back at the families one last time, still smiling, that same cold, empty smile. The impact of Nicole Santiago's, Valerie Santiago's, and Morgan Kelsey's murders rippled far beyond their immediate families and friends. Their deaths sent shockwaves through the entire bodybuilding community, not just in Southern California, but across the entire country and even internationally. The bodybuilding community throughout Southern California was absolutely devastated. Iron Temple Gym, where the 3 women had trained together for years, held a memorial service that drew over 300 people. Competitors who'd never even met them showed up in their competition suits, posing on stage in tribute. Gyms across the state held moments of silence. Competitions dedicated entire awards in their names: the Santiago Sisters Memorial Award for Female Bodybuilding and the Morgan Kelsey Courage Award. But more than tributes and memorials, people started having long overdue honest conversations about the underground steroid culture that had directly led to their deaths. Coaches started speaking more openly about the dangers. Athletes started questioning their suppliers. Parents started asking harder questions about what their children were really putting in their bodies. Rosa Santiago became a passionate and tireless advocate for stricter regulation of performance-enhancing drugs and comprehensive education about the dangers of underground suppliers. In the months following the trial, she channeled her grief into action. She started a foundation called Strong But Safe that provides extensive resources for athletes about legal supplements, proper training methodologies, nutrition science, and critically, how to recognize and avoid predatory sponsors and suppliers. The foundation has since grown significantly. They've partnered with over 150 gyms across 12 states. They offer free educational seminars at bodybuilding competitions. They've created online courses about safe training practices. They've even lobbied successfully for stricter penalties for underground steroid distribution in 3 states. "My daughters loved bodybuilding with their whole hearts," Rosa said in a comprehensive interview with a sports magazine 2 years after their deaths. "They loved the strength it gave them, the confidence, the discipline, the community of supportive people. But they got involved with the wrong person, and the sports underground culture made it too easy for someone like Damien to exploit them, manipulate them, and ultimately murder them. We need to fundamentally change that culture. We need to make it safe for athletes to pursue their dreams without being preyed upon by criminals." Rosa's advocacy work has been featured in numerous publications. She's spoken at conferences, appeared on podcasts, testified before state legislative committees. She's become a nationally recognized voice on the intersection of sports, performance enhancement, and athlete safety. Every year, on the anniversary of her daughter's deaths, she posts that photograph from the yacht, the last image of them alive, with a message about staying safe and trusting your instincts. Tyler Chen struggled profoundly for years after Morgan's death. The trauma of losing her so suddenly, so violently, triggered severe depression and PTSD. He couldn't enter their favorite restaurant without having panic attacks. He couldn't look at her design work without breaking down. For the first year, he could barely function. He eventually sought professional help, spending 2 years in intensive therapy. He joined support groups specifically for people who'd lost loved ones to violence. He connected with other families who'd lost people to Damien's criminal network. Slowly, painfully, he began to heal. In 2019, 3 years after Morgan's death, Tyler got a tattoo on his left forearm, Morgan's favorite quote in her handwriting, which he'd found in an old journal she kept. "Strong is beautiful, but kindness is strength." Below it, her dates, 1977 to 2016. Tyler eventually returned to work, though he changed careers entirely. He now works as a counselor for trauma survivors, using his own experience to help others navigate their grief. He's spoken publicly about his journey, about the importance of mental health treatment, about how grief never really goes away, but you can learn to carry it. "Morgan would want me to help people," he said in a victim advocacy video in 2020. "She was the kindest person I've ever known. She saw the best in everyone. And I think the best way I can honor her memory is to help other people who are suffering the way I suffered, to show them that you can survive this, even when it feels impossible." The DEA's investigation into Damien's steroid network led to one of the largest enforcement actions in West Coast history. The operation, which they named Operation Apex after Damien's yacht, resulted in over 40 arrests across 6 states. They seized over 200 pounds of illegal anabolic steroids, thousands of syringes and vials, manufacturing equipment, and over $3.2 million in cash and assets. But Agent Marcus Webb, who led the investigation, admitted in congressional testimony that the war on underground performance-enhancing drugs is far from over. "For every network we shut down, another one emerges within months," he explained. "The demand is constant. Athletes at every level, from high school to professional, are looking for any edge they can get. And predators like Damien Cross will always exist to exploit that demand and make millions doing it. All we can do is keep fighting, keep educating, keep investigating." The bodybuilding federation that sanctioned the competitions Nicole, Valerie, and Morgan competed and implemented new safety protocols following their deaths. They now require all competitors to sign acknowledgments about the dangers of performance-enhancing drugs. They provide resources for reporting suspicious sponsors or suppliers. They've partnered with Rosa's foundation to offer educational materials at every event. Some critics argue these measures don't go far enough, that the sport needs mandatory drug testing at all levels. Others counter that testing is expensive and will always be circumvented by those determined to cheat. The debate continues, but at least the conversation is happening openly now. The photograph from the yacht, the final image of Nicole, Valerie, and Morgan alive, was released to their families after the trial concluded, and all appeals were exhausted. Rosa keeps it on her phone, though she's said in interviews that looking at it breaks her heart every single time. "I see my babies there, so happy, so strong, so full of life," she said through tears in a documentary about the case that aired in 2019. "They have no idea what's about to happen to them. They're just excited about their dreams, about the competition, about being together. That's how I want to remember them. Strong, happy, together. Not how they ended, but how they lived." The photograph has been used in Rosa's foundation materials, in news articles about the case, in educational presentations about the dangers of underground sports supplements. It's become an iconic image, a reminder of dreams cut short, of trust betrayed, of lives stolen. Damian Cross is currently incarcerated at California State Prison Corcoran in the Protective Custody Unit. He's filed multiple appeals over the years, all systematically denied. He's claimed evidence was planted, that his trial was unfair, that his constitutional rights were violated. Every appeal has been rejected by higher courts. He'll die in prison. That's a certainty. In prison interviews, which he's granted despite the strong objections of prosecutors and victim families, he's shown no remorse. He's described himself as a businessman who was protecting his investments. He's claimed the women knew what they were getting into. He suggested they got what they deserved for being informants. These statements have caused immeasurable additional pain to the families, but they've also served a purpose. They've shown the world exactly who Damian Cross is, a narcissist, a sociopath, a cold-blooded murderer who sees human beings as expendable assets. Rosa has refused to ever speak his name in public. "He doesn't deserve to have his name in the same sentence as my daughters," she said repeatedly. "He's nothing. He's nobody. My daughters were everything." The wider impact of the case extended into popular culture. The murders have been featured in multiple true crime documentaries. A podcast series devoted 8 episodes to investigating the case. A book was published in 2020 titled Deadly Flex: The Marina Murders and the Dark Side of Bodybuilding. All of this attention has served Rosa's purposes, keeping the story alive, educating people about the dangers, preventing other families from experiencing what she's experienced. But it's also been re-traumatizing, forcing her to relive the worst moments of her life over and over for public consumption. "Some days I can talk about it," she's admitted. "Some days I use my pain to help others, to educate, to advocate. Other days I can't get out of bed. Both of those realities exist simultaneously. That's what grief is. It's not linear. It's not simple. It's not something you get over. You just learn to carry it." The SoCal Championships that Nicole, Valerie, and Morgan were training for when they died went ahead as scheduled 3 weeks after their murders. The organizers held an opening ceremony honoring the 3 women. Competitors wore black armbands. The awards for their categories were named after them. Several competitors broke down crying on stage. Tyler attended, sitting in the audience with Rosa. He said later it was one of the hardest things he'd ever done, watching other women compete in the event Morgan had been so excited about, knowing she should have been up there on that stage. But he also said it was important to see the community come together, important to honor Morgan's passion, important to remember what she loved about the sport, not just how the sport's dark side killed her. In the end, Damian Cross was convicted on 3 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, 3 counts of kidnapping, 1 count of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, 3 counts of witness intimidation, 2 counts of evidence tampering, and multiple weapons charges. He received 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 85 years. The prosecution had initially considered seeking the death penalty, but Rosa had asked them not to. "I don't want to spend the next 20 years going through appeals and hearing his name," she explained. "I want him to disappear into prison and never come out. I want him forgotten." Nicole Santiago was 36 years old. Valerie Santiago was 33. Morgan Kelsey was 39. They were daughters, sisters, friends, athletes, dreams, and lovers of life. They were strong, dedicated, passionate, and brave. They made a mistake trusting the wrong person, but they tried desperately to make it right. They agreed to testify, to help bring down a criminal organization, to protect other athletes from being exploited the way they'd been exploited. And they deserve so much more than the fate that found them on that yacht on a sunny afternoon in May. Their story is a powerful reminder that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help when something feels wrong, trust the right people with the truth, and walk away from situations that trigger your deepest instincts of danger. It's a reminder that the pursuit of dreams should never cost you your life, your safety, or your integrity. It's a reminder that behind every crime statistic, there are real people with real families who loved them and real dreams that died with them. Rest in peace, Nicole, Valerie, and Morgan. Your strength, your courage, your love for each other, and your dedication to doing the right thing, even when it was terrifying, will never be forgotten. Your story continues to save lives through the education and advocacy it has inspired. You deserved so much better, and the world is less bright without you in it.